everyone, welcome to another episode of CXCY, brought to you by our friends at ClueTrack. My name is Dan Gingiss, the Experience Maker, and as usual, I'm going to help lead this discussion on yet another industry where we're going to dive really deep and figure out what makes customer experience tick. What are the things that people remember about this industry, and what are the things that really they don't like and that they prefer would be different? When we can learn these things, the positives and the negatives, we can go back to work and we can adjust them in our own businesses. I hope that you will watch this episode with the thinking that even if this is not your industry, which it probably isn't, that the things that we learn from this industry are things that you can apply to your business no matter what industry you're in. I'm always excited to bring in a new industry because I get to learn something. And today we're going to talk about home improvement and specifically power tools. Now, I got to be honest, I am not the handiest of guys, although I do have an alter ego that sometimes comes out. I call him Handy Dan. He has a certain level of expertise with things like power tools. It's not a very high level of expertise, but when in a pinch, when we need to get something done, we can get something done. But that's why, of course, I always bring in the experts who really know what they're talking about. And today I am very excited that we have Ian Mullaney with us. He is the Vice President of Consumer Sales and Marketing for a company called Wagner Spray Tech, which you guessed it, is in the power tools business. So let's bring on Ian. Ian, welcome to the show. I wondered if you could maybe just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about Wagner Spray Tech.
Sure. I've been involved in this industry probably for 35 years now, working in the UK and now in the US in the power tool segment, and now work with Wagner Spray Tech for the last 10 years, marketing a range of different decorating power tools, as I call it. So been around the block a few times as the industry has developed in that respect. So it's a kind of exciting and interesting times as we face challenges of new generations coming through with DIY, as well as our existing customers.
Awesome. And for those not in the know, DIY is do it yourself. And that means that you got to find the handy Dan in all of you to be able to handle some of these projects at home. We're going to dive into some of those things, Ian, that you just mentioned that are changes in the industry, that are things that we found in the data that I think you're going to find really interesting. And as always, we're going to lean on you as the industry expert to help us sort through it. So without further ado, let's bring up the data from ClueTrack. All right, so as usual, we took a look at a ton of data, and ClueTrack used its amazing technology to analyze and crunch the numbers for us and help us to sort through it here on this show. So we looked at over 7,000 online customer reviews in this space and across 7 different subsegments of home improvement. What's so cool about ClueTrack's tech is that it can go all the way down to a SKU level analysis, to a single product, to figure out what it is that people really like and what it is that maybe people don't like. We're going to focus this discussion on e-commerce. So let's all think about how, home improvement, we might go to a local hardware store, we might go to a big box store. But in this discussion, we're going to really focus it on online and the products that people are purchasing and using online, and therefore using reviews online. And our data is in the past year leading up to June of 2024. So it's a rich data source coming from a lot of different places that I think we're going to have some really interesting learnings. So Ian, let's first talk about this idea of purchasing things like power tools online. How has this changed the management of customer expectations? I mean, it feels to me like these are products that you might want to hold in your hands and touch and feel before you buy to see if they're the right size or the right weight. How do you address that when so much of the business has moved online?
I think that's one of the challenges that we face every day with our retail partners who have different approaches and strategies, especially the retailers that operate both in a digital and a physical world as opposed to just a digital world. To me, the critical thing is the consistency in terms of what you are presenting online, because our data tells us that in the power tool segment, many customers' journeys now start online. So the communication and the presentation of the content that you see online has to translate to an in-store environment. You start that building that trust online today, and then ultimately that extends into the physical environment. Now, depending on the nature and the type of product, some retailers have moved away from physical hand touching in terms of no displays. But for the most part, in terms of the power tools, those physical displays still exist, but maybe in a slightly diluted fashion. So you can go and feel the grip on a drill, or get close up to some of those products to feel the weight of it. But the data and the content that is there supporting that ultimately has to kind of match what you've seen online in the first instance. I think most people have an idea of what a drill's gonna weigh, or a paint sprayer, or another type of power tool in that respect. There's a kind of acceptance. We've all grown up, penetration of things like drills. It's highly penetrated, so there will be a familiarity already with those products. So, is it essential as what it was maybe years ago? I don't necessarily think so. To me, the important part though is the consistency, what you see online, translating into that physical environment, so you don't lose the trust of the customer at the point that they are buying. And a lot of people have already made that buying decision before they actually go into the store as well.
All right, totally makes sense. I think a little part of the brick and mortar retailers died a little bit there, as you were talking of people researching, in person and then buying online, which is of course what they don't want to see. But it is a reality, and it's something that they definitely have to deal with. So, all right, let's get into some of the findings that we found in the data. So one of the things that we saw that really popped is that consumers today are preferring cordless power tools. And I don't know if this is a change from the past or not. You can tell me that. But one of the complaints that we're seeing is that batteries are not lasting long enough. So I'm wondering if you can tell us, do you see that as well? And if so, how do manufacturers and retailers adjust to this?
So, the growth in cordless has been going on for many years, 20-something years plus. And I think as battery technology has evolved with lithium-ion batteries, that's accelerated because of the performance and the not the gradual drop-off, but the instant drop-off with a lithium-ion battery that you see with your power tools that you buy today. Cordless power tools, from a volume perspective, outsell corded power tools today. So the preference is there. Where you get into some of the more of the technical aspects of why run rates, which is kind of something that we refer to, or the operating time that you will get from a battery will differ, is because of the longevity that you're using that tool for. So, for example, a drill you're using in short bursts, so you're getting a longer runtime versus, say, something like a heat tool where you're using it for a larger period of time, and it's got a larger amp draw on the battery, so it burns through the battery power very, very quickly in that respect, versus a drill that has a low amp pull through on it. So the frustration that customers have, we see, is that expectations again aren't being managed maybe as clearly as they should be, because they think it should last the same length of time maybe as a drill. What they don't realize is necessarily, I'm using that drill for this period of time, but over 20 days, versus I'm using a heat tool for 10 minutes in one section, and the battery will die very, very quickly. And I think it's the communication on behalf of companies like mine and other power tool companies is managing those expectations clearer for those tools that will just burn through the battery runtime much faster. And I think there's a better job that overall we can do there as a group of brands in that respect.
So why do you think then that, if that's a case, why do you think that the battery operated devices are still so popular? Why not just buy one that you plug in, get a nice extension cord, and you don't have to worry about it going bad? Well,
I think you just said it there. You've got to use an extension cord. The convenience of using a cordless tool with not having to find a socket plug-in, I can use it anywhere. The portability really, really outweighs the corded tool for many, many, many applications. Just that freedom component. I don't have to go and figure out where my, extension cord is necessarily, and it's all coiled up and wound up, and you get rid of all of that hassle from a customer, and so the friction point is gone from that, and that value benefit outweighs the premium that you typically will pay for a cordless tool. I mean, the other side of it is as the market has evolved, you have platform technology across different brands, where I may have, like 2 or 3 tools that will work off one battery platform. So now I can just buy the tool without the battery because I've already got it. So my cost of acquisition, the purchase of that tool, has come down significantly, very close, if not lesser cost than a cordless tool, than a corded tool, should I say. Subsequently, I have the benefits of both, and I don't have to go and buy one that comes with a battery every time, if you understand my point.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that the batteries are most of the cost. The batteries can be, a huge part of that cost. It's so interesting. I don't know why I was thinking this, but as you were talking about this, I was kind of thinking about the transition that we all went through from corded telephones to what we have in our pocket right now, right? And what do? We pay a huge premium for this, and yet it is a whole lot more convenient. We don't have to worry about getting tangled up in the cord, all the same things that you were just talking about. So it's kind of interesting that 2 different businesses that really are unrelated have ended up in the same conclusion.
Yeah.
Now, there was another trend that we identified that I have to say was a little bit of a surprise for me. Again, I'm not in the industry, so I'm very interested to see what you think. But what we saw was that there are a lot of tools on the market now that are aimed specifically at women. And you can see here, there's a whole bunch of pink tools. There's an electric screwdriver. There is a power drill, and they are specifically geared at female do-it-yourselfers. Is this something that you have seen as well? Why do you think this might be happening? And again, how do we advise companies to sort of pay attention to trends like this?
I think there has definitely been a significant growth in women doing DIY projects. Their confidence levels have grown. There's been more and more content being created online. The rise of influencers, the rise of bloggers, we see it on some of the TV shows and everything. So I think all of that has driven the confidence levels for women, and that's great. I'm not too sure I buy into pink power tools personally, and whether that may be condescending in some respects, and but I think that there's no reason why a woman can't do a DIY project just as good as a man can do. So there's that encouragement from that segment of customers has been something that I think many power tool companies have focused on, and that has encouraged the growth. I think the other side of it is that if we go back to the financial crisis in 2008, it drove a lot of upcycling. And then all of a sudden, a lot of these projects, whether you're repairing some drawers or buying something from a secondhand store and refreshing it, so you're spray painting it, those tended to be more female oriented customers doing those projects, and in turn that's driven again a lot more through social media, a lot more projects that can be done. I've seen projects carried out that you would think, oh, that's definitely a man project carried out by a woman in terms of like building a deck. The scale and size of the projects that you see, is great, regardless of gender or anything. It doesn't make any difference. So I think that just the fact that females feel maybe more empowered to do DIY projects and supported with content and material there. The development of the tools, I think there's the same tools. Color scheme's one thing, but overall, I think that it's been driven more by social content and a lot more YouTube videos and stuff and things, giving people a lot more advice in terms of doing it. And I think that women just feel more empowered to do that, which I think is a great thing for the industry.
Yeah, I think it's a great point about the pink color and whether that's, some marketing department trying too hard to attract women where they might already be there, right? Do you see are the tools that you sell or the tools that you've seen in the industry, are there other colors that are available? Is this something, are power tools becoming a fashion icon kind of a thing, or is it all just pretty standard coloring?
I think people try different things, and maybe you get a slightly overzealous marketing department who come up with a new idea. But I mean, brands have colors that people recognize, and I think from a marketing perspective, you have to try and stick to those brands because it becomes part of your brand DNA. So I'd be very cautious of moving outside of that for a certain segment of customers who maybe don't really want you to move outside of your brand. In that respect.
Okay, it's time to play our favorite game here on CXCY, which is that we're going to ask you to guess the top delighters. These are the things that cause people to have a positive experience, and we want you to take a guess of what is most important. Now, we're showing you 5 different things. They are in alphabetical order because we don't want to give you any hints. And these are 5 things that did show up in our data. Number 1 is the control mechanism. Number 2 is performance and efficiency. 3 is quality and durability. 4 is usability. And 5 is weight and size. And we're going to highlight the top 3 of the delighters. But just as you look at these, what are the things that come to mind for you as things that you think probably impact a customer's likelihood to have a positive experience?
I think quality and durability, performance and efficiency, usability, to me, are the top 3. Well, I think we all want to believe that we are buying a quality tool, a tool that's not just going to break on the first time. So I think that's foundational to whatever product necessarily we buy, and it's important for the brand because ultimately we want that future customer to know that they can rely on the brand. The product has got certain marketing features and benefits, and we have to deliver on those as brands and not disappoint the customer. Too often you can see some over marketing of a product, and it fails to meet the customers or the marketing claims, should I say, and then it leads to disappointment. So the performance and efficiency, this is what it's going to do for you, and the goal should be always to over deliver. And usability, to me, that's fairly straightforward. I'm buying it for a project or a series of projects to be able to use this. So I need to have as much functionality as I can get out of my, whether it's a $50 investment or a $200 investment, whatever the piece of equipment, and that communicates into the value proposition, whether that's on the quality of, whether that contributes to the end game of finishing the project. Or what the project ultimately looks like, because that's my long-term goal. Why am I doing this project in the first place? I'm either doing some maintenance or doing some beautification, probably a part of my home, and that's my end game where I want to get to. I need to have that reliable piece of equipment that delivers the performance and is absolutely designed for that particular project in mind. Because the whole point of me doing DIY is that I'm not hiring a professional. So I'm doing it for 2 reasons. One, maybe some satisfaction that I've done it myself, but ultimately another motivator is saving money of hiring a pro.
All right. Well, let's see how you did. Let's reveal the answers. All right. The top 3, you were very, very close. Performance and efficiency, quality and durability, you definitely had up there on the top 2. And then weight and size became number 3. There's 2 things that stick out to me here that I really wanted to talk with you about. The first, you sort of mentioned in your guess, which was price. And in almost every other industry that we've looked at, price plays a really big role. And that didn't show up here. And I'm wondering if it's because of what you said, that when you do a do-it-yourself project, you're already saving money compared to hiring a professional. And so therefore, whether the piece of equipment is $50, $60, $80, it doesn't make as much of a difference. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you weigh up the difference in the cost of hiring a pro versus doing it yourself. So you're paying for the time for the pro, and now you think, well, I've got to invest in all of these tools. The investment, I think, plays in the mind of from a consumer perspective is that I'm not just buying these tools just for a one-off job. I'm going to buy them, and you convince yourself that you're going to use them again. But even then, the value is 10% of the cost of hiring a pro, maybe, in terms of from a cost ratio perspective. And then you have the challenge of doing it yourself. There are times, I think, where and there are horror stories that pros will probably tell you about, that they're being called out after somebody's done a DIY project and you're having to pay twice, but that's after the fact.
Well, I can relate to what you're saying as well, too. Just one look at my garage, you would think that I was way handier than I am based on all of the tools that over the years I have accumulated. So totally makes sense. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I want to bring this back up again here so that we can look at this list again, is that almost all of these things, I think all of them seem to be very base level requirements. These are not things that stand out to me as being exceptional in any way. They seem to be almost the what I call the man principle, minimal amount necessary, things that you would just expect from any product, that it's going to work, it's going to function the way that it's advertised. So to me, what strikes me is just how standard, maybe even boring these 5 elements are. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think the key in DIY, and it's the do-it-yourself mindset, is that I don't do this every single day. And when I'm carrying out a do-it-yourself project, simplicity is the key to get to the end game of where you want to get to. If we create more complexity in the tools that we create for those customers, it just heightens the fear of the customer completing that DIY project. So the important thing is to make sure that the tool is as simple to use as possible, so it takes away elements of that fear factor. There always will be fear factors in a do-it-yourself project, if it's the first time you've carried out a project. So taking fear out around the tools and making them very simple to use is more important. People don't necessarily want all the bells and whistles that you might get with some other products, that you're not going to use 50% of the features that come with products. Maybe it's like a home appliance or something like that. They look great, but are you going to really use them? And I think the power tool industry has done a really good job of really focusing on the simplicity and the ease of use for that DIY customer, so that they're engaged, they feel confident that they can use the tool and undertake DIY projects around the home.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And as we look at actual customer verbatims, this is what they say. So these are taken directly from online ratings and reviews. We don't edit them. So if there's any typos, that is not our responsibility. But you see things that just mimic what you just said, that it delivered paint smoothly and quickly. It was very handy, lightweight, and reliable. It works just as described. It's smooth and strong. So it is very much kind of I wanted this to work and it worked. Hooray, I am satisfied. And so it's really interesting to me because, again, I just haven't really seen that in many of the other industries that we've looked at. But exactly what you said came out in the verbatims. And that's why we love here on CXCY looking directly at what customers are saying. You cannot ever replace the actual voice of the customer.
Absolutely.
All right, so now continuing on, we're going to give you one more quiz. You did so well at the first quiz. We're going to give you one more quiz, and we're going to ask about, okay, what are the concerns? What are the things that cause people to perhaps have a negative experience? Now, one of them is on there that we have chatted about already, so we'll see if that pops to the top. But again, in alphabetical order, we've got accessories, battery and power, heating, torque capacity, and value and pricing. There comes the pricing part as well. So This one's a little bit trickier. What do you think, Ian?
Having spoken about it previously, the battery and the power one obviously sticks out for me as a negative. The other ones are interesting. Hard to say between those. Torque capacity, maybe, because it's running on a battery, would probably be another one for me. and heating issues. Certainly, if you used a battery with a heat gun, in terms of run time and being able to run for a longer period of time, that would stand out for me. So I'll go with those three.
All right. I love it. I'm going to tell you, I have not seen the answers here, or if I saw them, it was way before we recorded this, so I don't remember what the answers are. But I would be surprised if value and pricing's not on there because it's been on every other industry. But I am happy to be wrong on that. Let's take a look and see what the top three are. And there they are. Battery and power is number one, as we both thought that it would be. There's value and pricing. I've been doing this a while, so again, not surprised. And accessories, I think that's really interesting. I'm wondering how you react to accessories being one of the top three concerns.
That surprises me, knowing the amount of available accessories that power tool companies have available for their products. So I'm a little bit staggered. It was like what accessories necessarily are missing, and clearly I need to be reading some more of my ClueTrack data.
Yeah, I was wondering whether this was either accessories missing or maybe not functioning as desired, because again, as we said earlier, sometimes we just want it to work, right? And so maybe there's an accessory that isn't performing as desired. It's interesting, but that was, again, this is why we look at the data, because we can predict this all the time. And I do want to emphasize for people in every industry, do not assume what your customers are doing or how they're using your products. You have to look at the data, because way too often we make assumptions and they're based on reality, right? I'm going to guess, Ian, that most of the folks that work at your company enjoy doing a good do-it-yourself project themselves, right? That's one of the reasons they were probably drawn to your company versus working at some other place. But that doesn't mean that their experience doing it themselves is the same as my experience doing it myself or any other customer. And so we have to, in every industry, pay attention to this, look at the feedback, look at the verbatims, and build products, for not for ourselves, but for our eventual customers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you make a valid point, and without, peeling back the onion further in terms of that data, is it because accessories are not being packed in the box correctly or something like that? There's some issue there, or not. My expectations being not being met by thinking there is some accessories are the right accessory. And I think, and again, back to your point, you're up 100% correct. Peeling back that onion on the data and looking at that and what is resonating, what trends you're seeing, allows us as a brand to modify the product offering, and again, meet those customer or exceed those customers' expectations.
All right. So I wanted to also share with you some verbatims about battery and power, since that was the number one thing. And again, you start to see some detail in here that if you're really paying attention, helps to give you some ideas on what you might be able to do about it, right? So they tried to charge the battery and the charging capability isn't working. It's blinking and it didn't charge even after I plugged it in. Battery went dead after 6 months. So there was an expectation that obviously that it would last longer than that, or that it stopped working after the third use or the first use. And so it's interesting because when I thought about battery and power, my initial thinking was I have a project where I need this thing to run for an hour and the battery only lasts 20 minutes. This seems to be a little bit more about the quality of the battery, the lifetime quality of the battery. Does that surprise you at all?
Not really in terms of the customers. I mean, I think we all, again, this is about managing expectations. So the perception of a customer in terms of how long this battery is going to last can vary. So, I mean, if we think like just a normal set of batteries that we could buy and we put into a flashlight or something like that, we know at some point they're going to run out depending on how often we use that flashlight. Now, the difference here, we've got rechargeable batteries that still have cells in them, but at some point they are going to run out. And I think maybe if there's an expectation from a customer that this is rechargeable forever, then we need to manage that expectation clearer. Clearly, batteries fail because they have been predominantly exhausted. Their cells are being exhausted because they're being used so much. Are there occasional quality issues? Sure, there are. But the major brands out there, rely on that quality experience for their customers because they have extensive platforms with, significant household penetration. So I don't think it's a quality issue so much. I think again, it's about the different customers' expectations on what a battery should do and its performance. And I think there's an element of still further education that we can do as brands on that topic, and it will continue to evolve.
Yeah, and to that end, how much does it have to do with the standard of the battery itself versus maybe how a customer is storing it or how they're using it? And so the education has to be about, it's kind of like, when I bought an electric car, right? It tells you don't charge it all the way to 100%. If you want to save your battery and make the lifespan longer, you only charge it to 80 or 90%. Is there that kind of education that has to happen where it's sort of user error or user effect? Or is it that the batteries are only as good as the technology today can make them?
Yeah, I mean, there is more technology on batteries today that shows you how much charge you've got left in and when you need to charge it. But if you're like me, I use my drill and I just put it back on my workbench and I put it down and then I forget to put it back on the charge. And the chargers are designed today to say, okay, this is now ready. And you've got a flashing light on the chargers that say, okay, it's now ready. I'm not going back out into my garage to go and look if it's flashing or not. I'm going out the next time I want to use it and it's flashing. And I if I have put it back on charge, I know that it's ready to use. So I don't think necessarily it's that the technology isn't there in that respect today. I think to me again, it's about a battery, a rechargeable lithium-ion battery has a lifespan of a number of times that you can recharge that. And if you are using it every single day for 4 hours a day or whatever that may be, the lifespan is going to be this long versus if I'm using it once a year, it's going to be this long. Yeah. So I think there's that expectation on there out for the customers. Certainly the information provided by brands on the actual tools, the warning lights, the flashing lights, how much time is left in the battery. You can do a battery check. All of those features, especially on the major brands, tend to be there today to help the customer. But again, clearly there's something missing if people are writing comments like this, and that we need to, as brands, manage customer expectations better. In that, I think there's probably apps and stuff that are linking out to power tools now that are telling you the amount of charge that you've got on there. I don't know how valuable those really are for those customers, especially DIY. Maybe more for pros, who are using it on a more frequent basis.
Well, I also wonder if it's as simple as telling people up front, hey, this lithium-ion battery can charge approximately 100 times. And then after that, that's likely the lifespan. And so keep that in mind because, somebody that uses it every day, as you point out, that whole lifespan is going to be so much shorter. Yeah. And maybe this isn't even the right product for them, right? If they're using it every day, then they probably need a product that's going to last longer than that versus somebody like me that might use it, once a year. A battery is probably not going to be a main issue for me as long as when I do go to pick it up, it has kept a charge, right? And so I wonder if it is just, and I understand this is difficult because we may not want to admit that the battery doesn't charge more than a certain number of times. And yet most of these tools are using the same kind of battery. So I wonder if one way to stand out might be, hey, look, we're just going to be honest with you. This is the technology today. This is the same battery that is in any one of our competitors, and this is how long it lasts. Do you think customers are ready for that, or do you think there would be maybe some pushback?
No, I think customers could be ready for that. I mean, the encouragement is that you always buy a second battery as a backup. I mean, that's the idea. That's what we want customers to do in terms of to buy replacement batteries, just like you would buy replacement batteries for your flashlight. Ultimately, so I think there's the communication part of it, as you say. It's not just the number of recharges; it's the number of hours that you're going to use in terms of that battery. This will give you 400 hours worth of usage. Now, 400 hours could last a lifetime for some
Right.
people.
For me,
So I
it
think
certainly would.
exactly, me too. So I think there is an element of maybe understanding. You are reliant on the customer acknowledging and reading that important data. I would probably guarantee that I would forget that information after I've made the purchase because I want this tool to do this particular job and drill this hole. And, so I think, again, expectations are different. And back to your point, if I'm going to be using this on a regular basis and I just buy it with 1 2-amp-hour battery, it's probably not enough. And I probably should buy myself 4-amp-hour batteries or 4 4-amp-hour batteries or something like that and recognize that I need to have more power available to me, or alternatively, go back to a corded tool.
Right. All right, so we're going to leave with one last thing that I thought was pretty interesting. We used ClueTrack's proprietary AI technology, which is called Ask ClueTrack, to really dig into what are the specific things that customers are saying that are appealing to them or that are, affecting their experience in some way. So I want to share that with you. So we saw 4 things that came up that I'd like to just get your thoughts on, at least one of them. Inbuilt LED lights, variable speed control, laser guide features, and something called gyroscopic sensor, which I don't have any idea what that means, but maybe you can tell me. And I think what is fascinating to me, again, as somebody who's not terribly knowledgeable about this, is how specific these things are. And again, this is what you get when you dig into the data and you see what people are actually talking about. So talk to me about at least one of these features and whether you're surprised or not that it is showing up in the consumer mindset.
These features don't surprise me. I mean, from my own experience, the inbuilt LED light, I think, has been an extremely valuable feature to adding to my powered or cordless drills and screwdrivers. Because you're in that dark cabinet trying to put that final screw in, and it's so dark in there, and so that light feature is actually extremely beneficial. I think the other component here, which is what power tool companies have done with in terms of to make it again easier operation, but also safety aspects come into play here. The laser guide feature is another great feature in terms of the amount of times I've cut something on a board and it's kind of gone and I've had to get a new sheet of wood out. Having this feature with that laser guide just to keep your eyes focused, I think, is extremely beneficial. And the variable speed control really speaks for itself. I mean, you need different torque for whether you're putting in a little screw versus you're drilling a hole and going through masonry versus going through wood. That's been a feature that's been around for a long time, and it remains an important feature from a control perspective, being able to control that tool. And I'm with you on the gyroscopic sensor.
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. That's fantastic. Ian Mullaney, he is the Vice President of Consumer Sales and Marketing for Wagner Spray Tech. Thank you so much for being here today. I know I learned a lot, and I really appreciate you bringing your expertise to this episode. So thank you very much.
Okay. No, you're welcome.
And as always, I want to thank our audience here at CXCY for joining us each and every episode. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into power tools today. Again, I know I learned something, and some of the things that we talked about are absolutely applicable to your business, no matter what business you're in, right? We talked about batteries and power, right? And that it might be a feature of your product or it might not be. We talked about accessories and how people use your product. We talked about the expectation that the thing just works, right? Which seems like a very basic expectation of customers. But if it doesn't work, then don't be surprised if you start to see negative reviews. And I think the other thing that we saw for sure here firsthand is that when we really pay attention to what our customers are saying, when we read the words, when we listen to their voices, we can get so much depth and detail that can help us build better products and better experiences for our customers. So thank you once again for being here on behalf of my friends at ClueTrack and all of the people associated with CXCY. My name is Dan Gingiss, the Experience Maker, and we'll see you next time.